Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on An Cluiche with me, Seamus Brady, our host, and for this one I'm joined by Jason from Loaf of Bread GA. And this is another one of those kind of loosely put together episodes where we're just going to talk about any GA news that has come out over the last few days. Obviously, I did one with Eamon Donoghue last Friday. This one, of course, is on Wednesday, and it has been a mental few days in the GAA, Jason. I mean, obviously, the main one. We're not even going to do a bit of an intro for the general GA world. We already know what the top story is. Mickey Harte going to Derry for 2024. Like, what? They're genuinely. I was on a podcast with Aaron Prendergast, GA Fan TV, Gaelic Games Fan TV. Big shout out to him. And the two of us were in disbelief when this came. Like, what parallel universe are we living in?
I don't know. Thanks for having me on, Seamus, as well. It was a bit bizarre. I got a text a few days ago off a lad, and he said to me, there's rumours going around that Mickey's going to leave Louth, and I was like, that's never going to happen. I was like, and if he does, it's retirement. He's what, 70, 71. I said that'll be the end of him. It's obviously, times is catching up on him a little bit in terms of run the sideline, run training all the time. But then to go to Derry, Joe Brolly and Mulligan had some interesting things to say about it. All right, worst thing since the plantation, and was it something about joining Rangers as well? Like, I think it's a little bit rich from Derry to take a manager from another county when, like we see with other counties, there's plenty of young managers coming through at different levels, and Derry will be a good team to kind of give somebody with maybe club experience, has won a couple of county titles or something with his club. I just think it's very, very strange. It's a terrible fit, like really, like the two counties, they don't see eye to eye at all. Like, I don't quite get the thinking behind it. Maybe they're trying to bring in experience and just, keep the team pushing on. But I think it's a terrible, terrible choice as a manager now for us,
Really?
as neutrals. Yeah, I do. Yeah, for us as neutrals, like it's great because the Ulster Championship is going to be great crack next year, especially if the draw comes out and Derry meet Tyrone somewhere. That'll be some crack. Like we'll all be looking for tickets to that one, like to head up north to see that. But I don't see it fitting. Like, I don't know. I think Derry are kind of coming out as a slightly less blanket defence kind of team. They've done well the last couple of years. They're maybe that one step away from a bigger kind of achievement. And I just don't know exactly what difference Mickey Harte is going to bring that they couldn't have tried out with somebody, who's got a bit more of an attacking mindset. I know Louth have been on the up, and that's fantastic and all, but Louth were so far down that how could you not go up? Like, there was only one way for them to go, and I think Mickey Harte doesn't have to be Mickey Harte. Anybody I think could have, you can galvanize a team together who are at rock bottom and aren't going anywhere fast. So it was the perfect opportunity for him to bring in young lads and bring, the team up. Derry's a different thing. Like, he's now going to be expected to be challenged for the All-Ireland again. And like, I just don't see it. Maybe I'm missing something completely, but it just doesn't sit and doesn't fit with me at all. Like, Kieran Mina wasn't doing too bad there. Like, I know he's obviously stepped away from it and it's, a bit too much, and he's said work commitments and all that other stuff, but Mickey Harte would not have been on the shortlist for the Derry manager when Kieran Mina stepped down. I was there looking around going, I wonder who they get. And then even like Mickey Graham, as I was thinking, I was like, no, that doesn't really fit too well either. But it's a very, very strange one. Like Mickey
For me,
Graham,
it was Malach O'Rourke was as obvious a candidate as I've seen. And I was stunned when he didn't get it. I thought Malach O'Rourke with Conor Gilligan and Paddy Bradley probably around the backroom team. I thought that was the ticket they'd go with. Didn't see this coming.
Mickey Harte doesn't fit.
Yeah, but this, I mean, I like where you're going with it. I think disappointment will either succeed or fail badly for exactly who Mickey Harte is. He'll either come in and he will be the missing piece and he will be so experienced and professional with the setup that he can get them over the line to an All-Ireland title, like he did with Tyrone in 2003, 08, and 05. Or he'll go more defensive. Derry will take a step back, and when they get to Croke Park, they'll get completely beaten off the pitch like they did against Galway and against Dublin. They did well against Kerry because they went for it a bit more this time. And that was showing a progression in their capabilities. So I do agree with you. I think disappointment will either fail or succeed for exactly who Mickey Harte is, because throughout his career, Mickey has never swayed from, he wants the absolute best and wants to win all the time. He is as competitive as it gets. But I thought that would extend, and I'm being honest, I thought that would extend into his personality. I thought it was one of those things where, like, in the same way you'd think, like, how could I put this? Paddy O'Shea would never manage Dublin. Like, Kevin Heffernan would never manage Kerry. I thought Mickey Harte would never manage Derry. Ever. I thought, like, literally, not even never mind Derry. I thought he'd never manage anyone up the north. I thought he'd never manage Donegal. I thought he'd never manage Armagh. Derry is even worse. Like, I'm like, that is the worst pick.
Yeah, of all the teams he could have gone to, like, it is, kind of using what O'Mulligan said about Rangers and stuff, it would be the equivalent of, like, if, Martin O'Neill or Brendan Rodgers went to Rangers in the morning. It's that kind of, it almost has that historical kind of symbolism almost to it as well, that, like, it's very, very, it's nearly hitting the bone probably for some people in Derry, and you get that sense even from, like, Joe Brolly's immediate, emotional reactions that he's throwing out. But behind it all, there's probably thousands more behind him who are kind of going, hang on here, this isn't, regardless of how good he is as a manager or not, this is what we want in Derry. And like you were saying, it could fall apart, it could go really well. Like, Derry have very, very good defenders, like from Chrissy through a number of lads. But when you get around the middle with Conor and Brendan Rodgers, that kind of thing, they're very, very good attacking players. So in my eyes, he's going to turn them into a great defensive machine and bore us to death and rely on whatever, McGuigan or somebody up front just to do the damage. And I don't know how that's going to sit with Derry, because in the past couple of years, they've got, as you said, they gave Kerry a rattle because they went at it. And that's what people want. They're bored of this, defensive style, and I know Jim McGuinness is back in, and it could last forever at this rate, but it made for the games that they went for it. And I think Derry kind of appreciated the effort that, players go to when they're doing that. Like, Westmeath got bet by Mickey Harte and Louth in Desi's first championship game, Desi Dolan's first championship game. Like, we went into our shell and basically offered Mickey Harte the chance to push lads forward, and it looked great for Louth. He looked like a hero because he turned around an 8-point deficit at half time. But for the first 35 minutes, Louth may as well have had 30 lads behind the ball themselves. They were that defensive. And that's the Mickey Harte that I know. And it's 20 years since Tyrone, won it in 2003. Football has changed a lot since then. It's not the, near on man-to-man game anymore. It's a systematic game. It's made for him in many ways to be defensive. And I don't know if that's going to suit Derry people and supporters. Now, it's going to bring them out in the droves at the start, because, like, for the sheer media attention and crack that it's going to get, regardless if Derry get drawn against Antrim or somebody who's they're likely to beat in the open round, it's going to be an absolute full house, because everyone's just going to be there looking to see what he's like on the sideline with Derry and how the lads react. And I like it.
My main thing
as
is
a neutral.
we haven't talked about this, man. Derry are playing Tyrone in the Allianz League. They're in the same division.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's going
to be some crack.
Can you imagine that? The atmosphere at Derry Tyrone League. It's going to be nuts. And this is your thing that I haven't even said to you. Like, we haven't even talked about what's Brian Dooher and Fergal Logan making of this. Because now they know that, like, talk about putting a fire up them. Like, they talk about it.
It's a different preparation now for them.
The other corner.
Yeah, it's a different preparation now for them, because in some ways they might kind of like it, because it's going to take a lot of the heat off them. They're going to be the sideline show. Everyone in the north is going to be the sideline show to Mickey Harte and Derry. Pressure's off Jim
Even
McGuinness.
McGuinness.
Jim McGuinness is gone now.
Even
Yeah,
Jim
no,
McGuinness. That's
no one knows.
yesterday's
No one
news
knows he
now.
exists anymore. Yeah, like you thought, God, this is Jim McGuinness. Can't wait for the league next year. The summer's going to be class, and Jim McGuinness is back. Jimmy's winning matches. Well, Jimmy mightn't even get a headline. He might be a couple of pages into the paper at this rate. It'll be everything is going to be Derry next year. Dublin could, Desi Farrell could step down and be replaced by someone tomorrow, and it still wouldn't take the limelight off Mickey Harte and Derry, because, as I said, it is just the worst mismatch in the world. But they're going from a footballing point of view, from me who writes history books, like from a historical point of view, from everything else, it is the worst collaboration like in a long, long time since, I don't try to get some terrible music collaborations over the years. There's probably some there, but like it's pretty bad. But yet, we could come back in a year's time or whatever, and he could have won Sam with Derry, and we'd all look like idiots. But that's the beauty of it.
Do you really think that he can't do it? I think it could be the perfect appointment for them. I'm not saying it is.
Yeah.
I'm saying it could be, because when you look at how close they were to beating Kerry in that semi-final, I do think Derry had it. Like, it was there. Like, McKinless has that shot for goal. Shane Ryan saves it. Like, if that went in, Derry would have been 5 points clear. They ran out of gas when the finish line was in sight, and Kerry powered on. And you're talking about Mickey Harte will probably get those lads fitter than they've ever been, even fitter than they already are. And now, like, you think about like players like Garrett McKinless, and like they're going to thrive in Mickey Harte's systems. And on top of that, I think they're one class forward away from actually being serious, pretty hard to stop for the All Ireland, in my opinion. I think if Lachlan Murray flourishes, or if they bring back Callum Brown from the AFL somehow, I think then they're seriously hard to stop, because they are a bit reliant on McGuigan when it comes to the final third. But you never know. Hart might just get the best out of a Niall Loughlin or a Lachlan Murray and get them shooting better than they ever have before. Or maybe Callum Brown might be enticed to come back now, and maybe he will shake up the whole championship. Like, there's a lot of time between here and March, and it'll be so interesting to see what happens in those next few months. But yeah, I think like it could be one of those where we look back on it in a couple of months and go, wow, what an appointment. My whole thing about it is just like, I'm not surprised that Derry went for him. I think it's kind of it's like a win-win in a way. They get to kind of stick the finger up to their biggest rivals, but then they also get to take a world-class coach in. Maybe the style won't be pretty, whatever, but he will get them results. Like, you saw what he did with Loud. So he still got it, in my opinion. But it's sure going to be entertaining.
Yeah. And I don't doubt, he's, one of the greatest managers, the game has ever seen. That's not, a problem at all. I just maybe think that what they've built in the past couple of years hasn't, the games I was at anyway, it didn't seem like that traditional, Ulster blanket defense type thing. Like they were well prepared to go forward, and they were well prepared to leave lads up front, which I kind of liked. Whereas, you were probably there and I was there, and I remember the boos of Donegal and Dublin in Croke Park, all those years ago, and it sticks with you. And in some ways it's changed, in some ways it hasn't. But I kind of liked watching Derry at times. Like, they did drive me insane as well, but I did enjoy watching them sometimes. But I just don't know if that's going to continue in the same way. And yeah, I completely agree. Maybe it's a genius appointment, because Lachlan Murray, like we saw him come off the bench in his, his first couple of games, he looked phenomenal. He could be, as you said, that missing forward that they're just looking for to start, and take the pressure off some of the other lads for scoring, even from, around the midfield as well. And then he could be the name, to entice like Callum Brown back from Australia. Like, it'd be something similar to like Marty Clark coming back for Down, getting to the All-Ireland in 2010. Like, I remember being at that one as well, and just thinking about, this lad has really bulked up since he came back, and he's a different footballer now. And, Callum Brown could be something similar as well. I just think for the GAA, it's probably a fantastic boost in some ways for them, because managerial changes happen so often, and usually they're like, Mickey's gone to wherever, blah blah blah. But Mickey Harte's gone to Derry, one of the most iconic names, has now gone to a team that probably, if you asked Paddy Power frauds and that a couple of years ago, they would have been fairly substantial. You would have made a small fortune off
Leicester
it.
winning
But
the league type.
Leicester 5,000-1, exactly, yeah. And I do think, yeah, you're right. McKinless, etc., those lads who run for Ireland, it'll just boost them further, and the fitness thing will never come into question for them. And it might have to force other teams now to up their game a little bit, because it's going to get everyone talking. And behind the scenes, Tyrone and all the lads up the north, are going to be, he's going to be in the back of their mind, training sessions. Like, they're going to be, okay, lads, we've got to do this extra bit. Mickey's in Derry now and he's back in the north. And it's adding the spice to it a little bit. And I still, if I'm being honest though, I still don't think he is the one to guide them to a title. It's a long time since he won the All-Ireland. He's been, doing well with teams that he's been at, and Louth, were going well, as I said, but they couldn't really go much further down. So it was a handy fit for him as well. But I'm going to say now, Derry definitely are not going to win the All-Ireland. They won't even make the final. No, I don't. I don't think they'll be in the final. No.
Talk about putting your money where your mouth is.
I'm not brave enough to say they won't make the semi-finals. They probably will, but I don't think they'll be in an All-Ireland final when he's in charge.
Interesting. But like, I think one thing that I absolutely agree with you on is like the fact of how much is going to shake up the Ulster Championship. Like, let's be honest, next year the Ulster Championship is going to be box office. You've got Mickey Harte with Derry. You've got Jim McGuinness with Donegal. You've got Raymond Galligan and his new management team with Cavan. You've got Tyrone are going to be more fired up than they've been in years now, because Mickey Harte has gone to Derry. You've got Kieran McGeeney's got something to prove at Armagh. They're going to be good again. You got Vinnie Corey's got his feet on the table with Monaghan. His second year at the helm. What can he do? Fermanagh, Down, Antrim, they're all making progress. They're getting promoted. They're getting to Tailteann Cup finals. It's going to be box office. Yeah,
it's going to be unreal. The only thing I hope is that it's actually, legitimately unreal. I know it's a topic for another day probably, but all the talk of the Ulster Championship last year, how good it was. Realistically, like, when you look back on it, the last 10 minutes of a lot of games were very entertaining and dramatic, but a lot of the rest of it was absolutely cat. So it might make a difference this year to overall games, as opposed to just having these, tense dramatic finishes when the defensive blanket disappears because we're running out of time. We have to chase a 1-point deficit. I'd like to see more games being entertaining. Jimmy, it's probably great for him that the limelight isn't on him. He's probably happy enough with that. Monaghan, I love Monaghan. I don't know what it is about them. I just love the fact that they just plug away every year and no one gives them a chance half the time, and they just somehow end up doing something that just adds a bit of extra spice to it all. And then to Tyrone, look, that's going to be great crack. It's going to be some laugh next year, like you said, when the league comes around. It's going to be quality. Who else am I leaving out there? Armagh. Kieran McGeady is now the longest served manager or something, isn't he? Something ridiculous. Like, that's bizarre. Yeah, that's bizarre that he's the longest served. It shows you like how managerial this roundabout has come from the Premiership and football into GA as well. It's slowly becoming a results game. All it's missing is some Saudi Arabian money and we would be away with it. So
well, it's going to be absolutely fascinating to watch, and it'll be full of updates as well. It is official, by the way. Like, Derry have confirmed that Mickey Harte will be the manager for 2024. It's no longer speculation. I was thinking about last year with the Kieran Donaghy incident, and everybody reported on it, and then nothing came out of it. In the end, Donaghy came out and shot it down pretty ruthlessly himself. Believe it or not, there is other GAA news. We're going to run through two good stories that happened over the last couple of days. This one happened very under the radar because of the timing. But Mickey Graham has stepped in now as Leitrim assistant manager. So this is a really good coup for Leitrim. Honestly, I thought that this guy would have been away from the game for a while now. I thought if he's walking away from Cavan, I don't see him taking another job for a while. What did you make of this?
Yeah, very under the radar, as you said. I do like Mickey Graham a lot. He was coaching Mullinachta when my cousin was playing in the county final against them, and it was kind of the first time I'd
They
seen.
beat Crokes. That was the year they beat Kilmacud Crokes, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was right. Yeah, it was the first time I'd seen Mullinachta play, and the first time I'd seen a Mickey Graham team play as well, and they were so disciplined. It was unbelievable, and no problem with fitness, no problem with slowing the game down when they needed to, no problem with picking it up. And going in alongside Andy Moran could be. Uh, it's hard to say that it might be, a big surprise, have for Leitrim, and they'll suddenly win Connacht or whatever. It's great having the Bangers on the sideline. You still have to have the lads on the pitch, and they're still, they are a one-man show in many ways, and that came out very much against New York last year. Of course, that you take their one man out of the game, and it suddenly becomes very different. But big coup for them at the same time. Obviously, it's handy for Mickey Graham. It's literally across the road, so it's not exactly adding mileage to the clock for Leitrim. And for him, it's quite handy going forward and back. So I like it. It'll be interesting. I don't know what kind of impact he's going to have behind the scenes. It's a strange one as well. It's going to be strange not to see him as like the main focus on the sideline. It's a bit like kind of looking at Cian O'Neill or something like that. In the background, that you're kind of like, he should be a manager. He should be in front, not standing behind. But maybe it's what he wants. Maybe it's maybe work commitments and stuff. It's a little bit less pressure. He is a sales rep, I think, or something like that, or he used to be anyway. But yeah, it could be an interesting fit for Leitrim. I don't know exactly what difference it's going to make, but you never know. Maybe they mightn't lose to New York this year or whoever.
They had a fairly rocky year. Like there's no two ways about it. I mean, they definitely took a step backwards this year. I thought, in previous years they'd actually been playing good football, and they'd been a team that I actually fancied to beat pretty much anyone in the Division 4 and lower Division 3 on their given day. I fancied Leitrim to have a crack at any of them, but not last year. Last year they looked very vulnerable in a lot of games, and definitely something needs to change. And Mickey Graham coming in is a good start. The final bit of news we'll get before we wrap this up. This is a brief one, but as if Tyrone didn't need any more bad news, Conor McKenna has extended his stay in Australia. He's going to stay down under for another 2 seasons at least. He has a contract now until the end of 2025 with the Brisbane Lions. McKenna has been fantastic this season. If you haven't been paying attention, he has played every game possible, and the Brisbane Lions are into the top 4 and into the playoff games. So, again, another guy who was critical for their 2021 All-Ireland win. I mean, you think of the goals that he came up with, particularly against Kerry. And there he is. He's staying in Australia for a longer time.
Yeah, I can probably understand why. From a human point of view, it's a different world out there. It's such a nice country, especially when you look at all you have to do is just look at the weather, and you're like, I'm not going home to that. I can understand where it's coming from, and especially when you're playing in a team who's making strides. As a Crows fan, it sickens me to see all these teams bypassing the Adelaide Crows. But anyway, we could do it a few Conor McKennas now at this stage. But I'm glad for him. And yeah, he will be a big loss to the GA, the fact that, it's signed and sealed and all that. But we kind of have been used in some ways not seeing him too often. He's with Brisbane now. He was with Essendon for a couple of years as well, or a few years. So in some ways, they've kind of planned without him, already, and they're just going to have to do the same thing again. And what the GA's loss is the AFL's gain, and it is happening more often. It's happening a lot in the GA. Again, it's probably another day's chat, but even the lads who are like the Westmeath New York lads won the senior football title for the first times in '96 at the weekend, and you look through their squad, and it's insane, from the Westmeath lads right through to Jack Savage, Emmett O'Connell, Eric Lowndes, all these lads playing for Westmeath out there. And a lot of them have no intention of coming back. And it's the same for the likes of McKenna and, Nash and all these guys who are out in Australia. Unless you're coming back to something or you're so dedicated to the GAA, or you're like Kennelly, who can afford to come back just to win All Ireland because you know it's nearly a given. It's not really something they're going to pounce on when life is quite nice out there, and Brisbane is a savage city. I couldn't, blame for not wanting to leave there as well. They do have to plan without him, and I'm sure when this news broke, they knew already that this was probably coming down the line. It's probably not too much of a surprise for them, but at the same time, yeah, they probably maybe had a slight hope that maybe he would come back. And maybe the news of Mickey Harte now might inspire him to come back, and who knows? I doubt it though, because it's just life is too good out there. Like, why would you? But yeah, it's, as I said, GAA's losses, the AFL's gain, and it's the same in the women's as well. What's the LGFA's losses, the AFLW's gain, and it's in the 20s or 30s, the numbers out there now, and it's only going to get bigger. Teams are going to have to get used to preparing for lads and ladies heading out the gap. So yeah, big loss to the GAA, and loss to our TV screens during the daytime, but we just have to get up much earlier in the morning to see him now.
That's it. No, well said. But yeah, no, I'm happy for him, to be honest, to get that bag as well. Like, get the money over there, like 100%. That's definitely a factor as well. If you can get paid to play the sport over there, I mean, you'd be silly to not at least do it for a couple of years. McKenna's come back and won All Ireland with Tyrone, probably looking at it and saying, will we win one again next year? Probably not. So yeah, I don't blame him for sticking over there. But yeah, that has been the run through of these three stories. Obviously, the huge one, Mickey Harte to Derry, and there will be more content on the channel about this, I'm sure. More twists and turns to come down the road. My thanks to Jason for joining me on this episode of Loaf of Bread GA. My thank you as well to anybody watching this stream. My brain is kind of lagging a bit towards the end, so we'll wrap it up a bit here.
Thanks, Shay. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. And until the next one, guys, here on An Cluiche, take care.